How you doing, Dawn?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You're a hard act to follow. Let's see how I do here.
You're doing great. Good times. Careful what you say before you scare Ryan away. How's the air in San Diego?
Way better than Northern California. I was just in Lake Tahoe for a week.
Oh,
And I have to say that it was a little tough. Reno was far worse than Lake Tahoe though. And it really did depend on the day. But it's really a shame when it gets so bad.
yeah.
How is it where you are?
Uh,
Blowing at you?
it's overcast with smoke.
Hmm.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. I am a little surprised Costco doesn't sell 20 packs of filters for your HVAC now. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. I was thinking of you the other day when we drove north. We stopped at that little park in Fresno that's out off the 41. It's actually a big park, right?
Oh, Woodward.
Yeah, with a really nice that Japanese friendship garden.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice there.
All right, well, we're still letting a few people in who are in the waiting room. So I'm gonna give it just a minute, make sure we can get everybody admitted.
Heads up, Jose Luis will not be joining us today from SACOG, so I'm here to do the best I can to capture everything and weigh in as needed.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I know August is a tough month. I've had several folks tell me that they would be out or have alternates here today. So, all right. Well, we're up to 75 participants and we've cleared the current waiting room. So I think we can get started. So I'm Dawn Batiste. I'm your new moderator for the year. And I wanted to start by thanking again Yvonne for his leadership last year and for your training and assistance in getting me on board and started this year. So I'm trying to, now that I am sharing my screen, can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
All right, now that I can do that, I can't see you. Which is fabulous, right? And I am a little bit new. So I will ask, Ryan is my co-host today and your vice moderator, and I have asked him to help me monitor the participants, the waiting room, the mute features, so that we can efficiently get through this. And so if you could use the raise your hand feature, if possible, if you have comments or questions, that would be very helpful. So introductions are not going to be conducted. Again, please introduce yourself if you are raising a question or an issue. And then the meeting is being recorded. So just as a point of clarification for folks, we are recording the meeting. So I will start by asking if there are any additions or changes to the agenda that anybody would like to propose. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from the prior meeting on June 22nd. They were attached both to the draft and to the final agenda. Does anybody have any any comments on the meeting minutes?
Move to approve. Good job.
All righty. Hearing no objections, we will go ahead and move on to the RTPA committee and other reports. Jennifer?
Yep, thank you, Dawn. So the SHSP steering committee met 3 times since our last update, and we'll meet one more time next week, just to gear up for the executive leadership meeting that will be on September 16th. The steering committee has been voting and reviewing different topics to forward the recommendations to the executive leadership committee for approval. Just a couple highlights include the high priority challenge areas, and you can find progress updates on the SHSP website if you are interested. And also new proposed SHSP actions. The committee reviewed 12 proposed new actions to the SHSP implementation plan and voted to approve and move those forward for recommendation. Also, the committee discussed key areas of institutionalizing the safe system approach and moving to a goal of 0 versus move towards 0 goal. And also they worked on defining the roles of the 5 E's within the safe system approach and supporting the new actions to support the implementation of that. There are a couple more details that I'll include and send over to Ryan for our notes, our meeting notes for this meeting. But just the next, like I said, the executive leadership committee meeting is September 16th. And then the next steering committee will meet in October, or aside from next week, after the leadership committee in October. But that's really all I had for today. And if anybody has any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me as well.
All righty, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Jennifer? All right. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to Ross McEwen on the Cooperative Committee and the HSIP.
Thank you, Don. The TCC and HSIP committees met on July 29th and had a robust agenda. I'll just go down all the various items. Local assistants had a little report out. They're planning an efficiency review or study for local assistants. Some RTPAs may be asked to participate, so look for that. On the FHWA report out, they are very seriously looking at inactive projects greater than 2 years. And there's a lot of activity in that front. And then they noted that the current administration in Washington is very interested in equity and to expect a greater activity for DBE audits, which will be coming soon to those with federal funds. Regarding the CTC update, they mentioned the SB1 kickoff workshop on August 24th, as well as the release of the draft ITSP guidelines, which I see will be an item later on this agenda. For the local highway bridge program, they're conducting a value analysis. A consultant is on board and for HBP surveys that are being sent out. And everyone or anyone that is involved with bridges are encouraged to fill out the form to help Caltrans obtain critical input on the HBP program. Furthermore, on inactive obligations, agencies with inactive obligations greater than 24 months must have submitted a form by August 6th. Hopefully they all did that. They should have been contacted by their local districts. It's important to fill out the expected costs of these remaining obligations And if the expected remaining cost is less than the obligation amount, then the difference could be deobligated. And all of this is required to be resolved with any invoices reimbursed that they do have so that they can get off the inactive list by the end of the federal fiscal year. And this is a big push by FHWA. Local assistance continues to work on the data access tool that will provide information to regions and local jurisdictions. They're moving forward with developing the dashboard and are actually conducting some testing. At some point when they are ready, local assistance will come to this group to present the working dashboard for further input. On the environmental front, Caltrans has not yet decided, or as of the meeting, Caltrans had not decided whether to proceed with the NEPA CEQA reciprocity. Some of you may know that there were, as part of the federal authorization a while back, the ability to have a state's environmental process kind of enhance or replace NEPA to an extent. This has been an ongoing discussion. No decision has been made yet. And one of the sticking points is the ability to delegate further to local agencies some of the responsibilities. Under the NEPA CEQA reciprocity, Caltrans would actually be responsible for CEQA, which a lot of jurisdictions may not want to relinquish CEQA over to Caltrans. Further, another item of discussion was Clean California, or SB 149, to clean up public spaces. There's some funding for local projects for local assistance, almost 300 million. Local assistance is developing some guidelines with some workshops to follow, and it's an extremely quick timeline. These funds apparently do not go through the CTC, but directly through local assistance. And roughly, local assistance has 6 months to get the program underway, where they call for projects by January, and then 3 months to finish it all up, and 2 years to expend the funds. Stay tuned for more information on that program. There's additional funding for on-state system roadways handled by Caltrans maintenance. That's it for the TCC committee. For the HSIP committee, there are many project sponsors coming to the committee asking for extensions for delayed safety projects. It's very difficult for the HSIP advisory committee to say no to safety projects. However, safety projects that are delayed for years means that other safety projects cannot move forward. And so it's kind of difficult to encourage or accept extensions for some projects when it means other projects actually cannot be funded and move forward. Regions, if you have any delayed HSIP projects, it's would be great if you could work with those local jurisdictions to expedite and get those projects back on track so that we can save lives and reduce injuries. And one final thing, reminder that local road safety plans are required for future HSIP funding cycles. There may still be some state funds available through the HSIP program to local jurisdictions to fund such plans. So they are all encouraged to apply before the funds run out, because in future cycles it will be a requirement and they'll be on their own to have to complete those local safety plans. And that is it with my report. Any questions? And Ryan, you got all that, right?
So I want to acknowledge, I don't know if anybody's looked at the chat, but thank you first, Rick, for telling me that we hit our limit. I had asked IT when we set up these meeting links to remove the 100-person limit and to establish my account with a higher limit. They assured me that they had, and then we hit a limit. So they are working on that now. I just sent out a broadcast to the RTPA group through Google to let them folks know to please hang in. And we are working to to do something to get the limit taken off of this particular meeting. If there are agencies with multiple folks on the line and you're willing to drop a spot or two, that might be helpful because we have a few folks from CTC that are trying to get in. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the budget and legislative update. I'm not sure how many folks that we currently have on the line. This is intended to be a panel discussion on the budget and the trailer bills and the federal reauthorization. So we've asked Paul Galazewski, Bill Higgins, Nicole Longoria with Caltrans, Keith Duncan, Michael Pimentel. I'm not sure if he was able to
No, he's on.
join us.
See
Oh,
that nice
great.
looking guy there? That's him.
Great. Oh, perfect. And then Keith Dunn, if he's available to maybe if one of you wants to start us off with kind of the, where we are with not just the budget, status of the budget for the year, but trailer bills related to the budget. And then maybe we can move into some discussion on the federal reauthorization. I did happen to send some initial questions, mostly related to Senate Bill 149, but I think if we could start kind of on the budget and trailer bills. The goal here of this kind of more of a panel discussion was to, get information that the regions need out to us and then have more of a dialogue and an opportunity for some question and answer. So maybe Keith, do you want to start on the transportation budget? Keith Duncan?
Keith had texted me and said that he wasn't, he was like the 105th.
Oh.
So
we're down a little on the participants. So,
Yeah.
but I think Keith Duncan at
Oh.
Caltrans is here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I get Keith Dunn and
Yeah.
Keith Duncan.
Yeah,
mixed
yeah.
up. Sorry, Keith Duncan.
No, all good. Am I coming through okay, Don?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, Keith Dunn and Keith Duncan, we get crossed up quite a bit. I don't know how many emails he gets from me, but I get several. From a state budget aspect, there's a couple items that we're still waiting for further, we could just say legislation that come forward. Obviously, the first one is the $500 million associated with the ATP, Active Transportation Program. That funding is still identified. That subsequent legislation will need to be enacted by, I believe it's October 10th. For that funding to then be implemented. If by October 11th nothing has passed, then that would revert back to the general fund because that is coming directly from the general fund. Another item of note is this $300 million that's potentially available for adaptation, climate adaptation, sea level rise and such items for both capital on the state side as well as for local assistance. That is also pending some supplementary legislation. From a general transportation from transit and rail, CalSTA agency has about $2.6 billion that's still kind of also pending supplemental legislation, about $1 billion for associated with the Olympic Games several years out, about $1 billion for other various priority transit and rail projects. There's about $500 million for grade separation and grade crossing projects, as well as about $100 million for zero emission and rail and transit equipment procurements and other associated projects. So we still have quite a bit of funding that's still kind of in hold for that supplemental legislation. That's a couple updates for you there. There may be any questions.
All right. So before we go to questions, I think, it would be helpful to get some updates from folks. I understand Michael does need to drop off at 2:30, but prior to this meeting, we had some interest in issues related to TDA and TDA maintenance of effort and performance issues, and I wanted to give Michael an opportunity to update us on where things are how things are going on TDA reform.
Yeah, thank you, Don, for the opportunity, and folks, good to be with you. I'm going to run through a few items, and in fact, I think it's probably going to be most instructive for me to pull up one slide that highlights for you all what was included in SB 149, the Transportation Trailer Bill, that speaks more broadly to relief from TDA in light of the pandemic. And so bear with me for just one moment. I will share my screen, and specifically a slide that covers exactly what is in 149. And so there were a variety of statutory relief measures that we at the California Transit Association pursued this year as a way of expanding on the statutory relief that was secured last year through two trailer bills, AB 90 and AB 107. AB 90 had instituted what we refer to as a hold harmless provision that basically says to the transit agencies that their share of STA will not be harmed by the reality that their revenue basis has shifted during this pandemic. AB 90 also did waive the financial penalties for noncompliance with the STA efficiency criteria and TDA's fare box recovery requirements. Now, this year through AB 149, we were able to see those measures extended through fiscal year 2022-2023. Now, last year, that second round of statutory relief, we had helped secure a flexibility measure that allows agencies to apply their state transit system state good repair dollars, which are typically earmarked for capital purposes, to be flexed for preserving service in the event that an agency found themselves in a position of financial duress. And there's some language that we worked on with Caltrans to specify more exactly the processes for agencies to be able to actuate that flexibility. But that measure was similarly extended in AB 107 through fiscal year 22-23. Now, more substantively, and I think this is what would speak to more generally the concept of TDA reform, we did see that Governor Newsom and his administration had advanced through the January budget more holistic reforms to the TDA body of law. And I'm happy to share with you today that many of those measures were included within the state budget through SB 149. And more specifically, what that looks like is a series of new exclusions from the definition of operating costs for the purposes of calculating fare box recovery and STA efficiency criteria calculations. Included within that would be exclusions for the costs that are necessary for providing ADA paratransit service, for providing demand response service. Also that speak to exclusions for the costs associated with the transition to zero emission technologies. Now we as an association supported that as a baseline, but also did request some additional exclusions to be added. One speaks to the cost for maintaining pension benefits for your workers, and really responds to new changes in accounting principles that apply to how those pension costs are reflected on your agency's books. And that would be new exclusions for the costs associated with conformance with GASB 68 and 75. Certainly we can go into some more details and I would say follow-up communications should you have questions on that. We also did pursue an exclusion for the cost of providing security service or entering into public safety contracts. That is in recognition that many agencies are at this point in time reevaluating what types of steps they'll be taking to maintain the safety of their riders, maintain the safety of their workers, and we want to provide some additional flexibility for agencies to enter into new forms of contracts. That's what's spoken to within that allowance. Now, though it is separate from this particular third bullet point, I would note that we did see a fairly significant development on two fronts. One is that we are now at the state level allowing for federal funds to be counted as local funds for the purposes of calculating fare box recovery and those STA efficiency criteria calculations. And that is largely in response to the reality that though we have many self-help counties throughout the state. Not every county is a self-help county, and there are counties that are continually challenged to provide, to meet rather, their fare box recovery requirements or SCA efficiency criteria. By allowing federal funds to count as local funds, we are able to help augment the ability for agencies to reach those criteria. Here too, we're also acknowledging that there are many regional operators, regional transit agencies, for whom federal funds are the base of their operations. And so this provides them, again, that ability to more rightly clear those requirements. Related to this, and this was a big thing that we heard from our members about throughout the pandemic, was a strong desire to allow for discounted and fare-free transit to be counted at its full retail value for the purposes of calculating your fare box recovery requirements. This acknowledges that throughout the pandemic, many agencies waived fare collection as a way of promoting social distancing between their operators and the traveling public. Increasingly, many of you will no doubt know that agencies are interested in exploring discounted or fare-free transit as a means of promoting equitable service, equitable access to their service, and this removes one of the barriers, one of the impediments that our agencies had identified in electing to move in that direction. Now, there are also some more holistic relief measures here. It's probably what is referred to a reference in the acknowledgement of the maintenance of effort language. There is a proposal that is included within SB 149 that would allow agencies to, frankly, set aside the idea of conforming to fare box recovery or SCA efficiency criteria calculations if they are able to demonstrate that they are maintaining their local support for operations, and it's at a level that is consistent with the level of local support that they provided to transit operations in fiscal year 18-19. Now, we understand that there may still be some agencies that would be challenged to demonstrate that. We know that overall, revenues that are available for transit operations have dried up throughout the pandemic because so many of those are supported by local option sales taxes. But here there is a baseline ability to exercise a new flexibility option, a new relief option should agencies choose. And I would say that this serves as an addition to all the various other measures that exist that soften the fare box recovery, the SCA efficiency requirements. And then very finally would point out that Caltrans has initiated a process that it also is spoken to in SB 149 that would seek to streamline and make more effective TDA's performance audits. And so that process is being underway through some efforts led by DRMT. Chad Riding is going to be the right point of contact for you all who are interested in learning more about this process. But I can speak authoritatively in saying that this process has begun its engagement with transit agencies. Chad and his team have provided a survey to the California Transit Association, to the California Association for Coordinated Transportation, for farming out to our transit agencies, RTPA and MPO members to respond to, that specify what challenges they've faced in going through these performance audits, what types of process improvements they would like to see. And then a week and a half ago, Caltrans did host a webinar that was broadcast, that was shared with our transit agency members across the CalAct and CTA membership to provide them with an update on the responses that have been received to date and some of the initial thinking for how it is that they will reform this TDA performance audit process. And so, again, that is still very much underway. I will be making a recommendation to Chad and his team that they connect with Don and share the survey with you all as a way of making sure that we have additional touch points, additional feedback in how it is that that performance audit gets refined moving forward. And then very finally, I do know that there is some interest more generally in what types of updates we'll see to the TDA guidebook. I have heard from Caltrans through Josh Pulverman and his team that there will be a revision that is forthcoming. They're in the process of evaluating SB 149. Currently, they'll be making conforming changes to that, and that very likely a draft version of that revised guidebook would go out to the TDA working group for feedback before finalization later this year. And so, Don, I think I touched on most of the points for the statutory relief, the TDA reform that you all were interested in hearing about. And I do apologize, but I will have to hop off for my next meeting. Don, I'll try to rejoin after my 2:30 p.m. call and be able to answer questions at the end of today's discussion if there is time for that.
Okay, yeah, I would like to first apologize. I've had probably a dozen discussions about the fact that this meeting would be for over 100 people, and something happened here. So we're still trying to get a few things figured out. I am being told by my IT folks that we might have to have folks rejoin the link. So hopefully we can find an appropriate time. I want to thank you, Michael. We did have a request if it would be possible for you to share the PowerPoint presentation. So if you wouldn't mind, if it'd be possible to send that over to me, I can send that out to the larger RTPA group. And I do know you have to go. So if folks have questions, if you're okay with it, Michael, I'll go ahead and put your email address in the chat. And if folks have additional questions, maybe they can contact you directly if you're fine with that.
Absolutely. And Don, just wanted to acknowledge that, in fact, I've got a much more detailed write-up on what was included in SB 149 that I'll circulate. It's an expanded version of this PowerPoint slide. So I'll send that to you shortly, and you can feel free to share that with all the members of this RTPA group. So thank you for the invitation to present.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. There is a strong interest from the RTPAs on these transit-related issues as well, and so we really appreciate you being here. And then I think next, if folks are okay with it, I'll open it up to Bill Higgins or Paul just to talk in turn on bills you're watching and anything that the RTPA group may be wanting to begin tracking on.
Yeah, there's a couple of bills. We don't have positions on them, but that you should be aware of that affect CTC programs. One actually has already been signed into law, although the change isn't terribly significant. But for the Local Streets and Roads program, SB 640 explicitly authorizes cities and counties to jointly fund projects. There was some, I guess, ambiguity in the state controller's guidance on that issue, but this bill clarifies that. And so when we update our guidelines for that program, we'll be addressing that. And then in terms of bills that are still pending, there's SB 671, which would require the commission to conduct a clean freight corridor assessment to identify corridors and projects around the state to implement zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure. And the results of that assessment would be incorporated into program guidelines. So that would, for us, mainly be the trade corridor enhancement program. And then one other one is AB 726. This bill, or sorry, it's SB 726. This bill would have the Air Resources Board develop a sustainable transportation strategy that would encompass all various transportation programs. So both the vehicle ones that CARB does, as well as the infrastructure ones, and have an overarching comprehensive strategy. The language in the bill, it's a little unclear exactly what the impact would be to our programs, as well as, there've been some questions about how this new strategy relates to efforts that are already underway or have been completed, like the CAPTI or CARB's mobile source strategy or things like that. And maybe the last one I'll highlight and might be a good segue into Bill Higgins, is AB 1147, which there's some language in there that would have Caltrans develop a bike highway proposal to submit to the commission, and then the commission would recommend fund sourcing for that, a fund source for that, which may include things like the active transportation program. There's also been other recent amendments to that bill related to the sustainable community strategies piece as well. Maybe I'll stop there and let Bill take over if he wants. You're muted, Bill.
Yeah, sorry about that. Did the mute faux pas. Thanks, Paul. First of all, on SB 726, and I'm coming back right from vacation. I literally arrived at my house a half an hour before this call. So I may be a little fuzzy on recent amendments, but one of the issues that I highlighted for some folks was that there's this kind of collaborative process to develop a sustainable strategy for climate reduction. But then there was this phrase that said, then ARB shall delegate, or it kind of raised ARB a little higher than the rest of you. Is that sentence still in there, Paul? And I'm just asking you whether it's in there. I'm not asking you to comment.
Yeah. And the way it's written, it's really CARB leading the strategy, and then commission and other agencies are more in a consultation role.
But then there's a sentence that says it can basically set what the strategies are, even if it's for a different agency, at least the way I read it. And that's something to a sentence to circle.
Yeah, it talks about setting goals for various programs.
And I know that you don't have an opinion on that particular. I just wanted to make sure that it was still in there so I could highlight it for everybody on this call. The other thing you raised 1147, and this is a bill that Assemblymember Friedman first proposed, had many changes in it. And one of the changes it had in it was a sustainable community block grant program, which became inserted into AB 140 and is now the REAP 2.0 program, which has $600 million in it for a lot of the agencies that are on this call. So one of the amendments, I believe that, and I haven't seen the in-print version, again, referencing my vacation, but I know that it's stripping out the sustainable block grant program that she had created, because now that's in the REAP program. And so now we're left with the other parts of the bill. There's the two parts that relating to the 15-minute communities and the bike highways program that are turned into study, I call them study or recommendation programs, nothing certain coming out of them. From our perspective, that's just a watch. We're taking a close look at the provisions that address how the Strategic Growth Council reports on the California Transportation Plan 2050 implementation, and how ARB reports on the implementation of the SESs under the SB 150 report. I'm about to put out an analysis of those that I think that those provisions right now are doing more good than bad. Although there are a couple of sentences in there that aren't perfect from our perspective. I'll be releasing that, but I expect this bill to get signed, quite frankly, because the League and CSAC and BIA and Transportation California, with the amendments that went into print, is my understanding, are all withdrawing any potential opposition. So there's going to be no opposition on this bill. And I know that there are agencies not on this call that want it signed. And so I'm expecting this bill to get signed. And I am likely to, unless somebody calls me and tells me I'm being crazy, which somebody may, I'm going to recommend a support position on that bill to our board, although I have a few of you folks to talk with first. But I'm doing that because Senator Friedman has worked with us really closely. I'm not sure my board's going to support it, but I feel like given how closely she has worked with us, I owe it to take it to the board. So that's something that you guys will, you'll be getting a full detailed memo from me later. So, or your ledge staff will. And why don't, I know we're running up on time and there's other people, so why don't we just leave it for questions? That's the meat of what I have.
All right, yeah, we are running up on time a little, so I wanted to ask Caltrans if we have anybody from Nicole Longoria's group or somebody who's been tracking on the federal reauthorization from CTC or Caltrans who wants to address the recently passed by the Senate bill.
I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm happy to take questions. What I'm assuming is that everybody's read most of the same summaries that I have read. I've not plowed through the language. Maybe Paul has. And I'm about to pick up the phone and call people who I know have. So I apologize for not having more. I think one of the things is, for those of you who haven't looked at it, I mean, this is essentially the reauthorization as well as an infrastructure plan, right? So we've got to take a closer look at it from that perspective. Paul, have you done any work?
Yeah, we're still kind of going through it right now. I mean, I think, overall the funding levels, I mean, certain programs got higher funding levels under the Invest Act. There are some in the Senate bill that are higher. So we're kind of sifting through that. I mean, overall, the House Invest Act had higher funding overall, but there are some parts of the Senate bill where some programs got higher funding.
Is that like CMAQ? I heard CMAQ didn't get the increase that everybody else got.
I don't know about, I don't know about CMAQ. So, and then, each of them has a policy changes associated with them as well, which there's some differences there too. So I mean, there's a lot to tackle there. I don't know if there's kind of specific questions on them, or process wise, we don't know anything more than anyone else knows. Just, it could, I mean, there seemed like there was momentum. Now it seems like there's issues in the House in terms of taking it up. So it could be a while, but.
Right. So for the RTPA group in particular, we have participated in discussions with, Caltrans in the past on implementation of federal authorizations and, the funding splits, the local, region and state splits of the funding as it comes down. And, depending on the language in the bill, we'd be very interested in staying involved in discussions on any state legislation required to implement anything in the new acts. We have in the past also had a funding group that was identified. So I want to put it out there because I know we've had some turnover in some of our RTPAs. If you are very interested in participating in those discussions, please send me an email to let me know of your interest in participating on any federal reauthorization funding group and discussions with Caltrans. And so we can put together kind of a smaller group of us to kind of move those issues forward as implementation, once we get something passed and implementation comes on. So are there any pressing questions by anybody on any of these legislative issues? Because if not, in the interest of time, I'd like to move on to the federal highway updates with Paul and Antonio. I don't know, Ryan, are you seeing any hands?
No hands.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all, for your contributions to this discussion. I think it's really good to get up to speed on the goings on legislatively and budget wise And I'd like, send me any feedback, RTPAs that you have on how this format went and what you might like to see in the future. So Antonio and Paul, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm on here, Don. How are you?
Great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to all of you all. I have basically just 2 updates and I will be quick. The first one is we at Federal Highway approved 2 transfers of STBG, or Surface Transportation Block Grant sub-allocations funds, or urban funds, as you all call them, in California to assist local agencies in meeting the local program obligation authority. One transfer was for $7.2 million from Fresno Council of Government to Sacramento Area Council of Government. The other was $7.25 million from VCTC to SACOG. We understand that there are other funds such as CMAQ and STB that are allocated for all area funds. They have also been loaned, but since CMAQ and SRSTP, I'm sorry, any area funds are not sub-allocated by FHWA. FHWA does not have to approve loans for these programs. Federal Highway and Caltrans will be tracking the obligation and expenditures of these funds and the repayment or transfers in the future years to ensure that each area obligates and expend the original sub-allocated amount for their areas over time. And then my final update is just a status update for the 8 valid NPOs. Last Friday we approved the redetermination of the air quality conformity analysis that was done in those areas. 2 of those NPOs included FSTIPs. Hopefully approval that kind of gave you all some wiggle room to keep working on mitigating the impact of no longer being able to use Impact 2014. But moving forward, as we have been doing, we will continue to work with not only the NPOs, but Caltrans and EPA to try to mitigate any foreseen challenges due to not being able to use Impact 2014. And with that, those are all the Federal Highway updates, and I am open to hear any questions that anyone may have.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Antonio? I would like to say that I'm really actually sad Jose Luis isn't here today because he was working on those urban STP transfers for quite a long time. Oh, you are here.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a Kaiser waiting room for an appointment that I
No. Well, congratulations on your loads.
Thank you, everyone. Yay! A lot of hustle from lots of people.
Yeah, so he's paved the way for us now, and I'm sure we'd be happy to be, a resource with local assistance to help the rest of us if we have issues with urbanized STP loans. So, all righty, let me go back, and I will share the screen again to get back on track with the agenda. We have CTC updates next. We're going to hear from Teresa on the 2022 STIP, Matthew on the SB1 workshops, and Lori on ATP.
Hi, thank you, Dawn. Hello, everyone. I was really hoping that we would be doing this in person by August 2021, and it didn't work out, right? So STIP, the commission will be approving guidelines. I want to make sure everybody notes that we do have revised shares. I will be posting them on our website. We have additional 65 million. Thank you, Keith Duncan. So I went ahead and redistributed that new amount. So make sure you see the revised, not the one that is from last commission meeting or the workshop, but now we have a new distribution, okay? So it's going up, which is good news. Now, there have been a couple of questions. How do we program the COVID relief funds that are going through the STIP? And If you did not program them yet, can you do it as part of your RTIP? That has been a common question that I've been getting. And yes, you can include it in your RTIP. If make sure that you, and I'll work with Don to come up with, to add a line in maybe the template for the RTIPs that says, you know, COVID relief funds. Keep in mind those shares are not part of the regular shares. So I track those separately. So when you come up with your RTIP totals, it's just from what the fund estimate indicates. Your COVID relief totals should be consistent with what the commission approved back in March, but it can be part of your RTIP as long as you identify it. If you have a project that has both regular shares and COVID relief shares, just put them in separate fund boxes. You know, you have 1 and 2. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I have nothing else except that let's let the fun begin.
All right, does anybody have questions for Teresa on the STIP?
Thank you.
All right, Teresa, I do want to just quickly let folks know that I did send a draft update to you of the STIP template to incorporate the language that's now been included for the 2022 STIP. So
Yes.
We do have a small group of the RTPAs that was sent out to seeking, you know, any input or assistance in updating that template. I am hoping within the next 2 weeks to get the STIP RTIP template finalized and out for folks to use. So.
Yes, and I there's a couple of things that we added to the guidelines that I would like to see it in the template. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So again, if there's anybody else other than the folks who have seen the draft template updates now that would like to participate in that process, send me an email. Thanks. All right, we'll move on to Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn, and good afternoon, everybody. So hopefully most of you are aware now, we will have our first SB1 competitive program workshops. It's going to be kind of an all program kickoff workshop on Tuesday, so a week from today, from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. This will include the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, the Trade Corridor Enhancement program, and the Local Partnership program. We did a kickoff containing all 3 programs, I think, in cycle 2. So this is going to be very similar. We're not going to get into the specifics of each particular program, but we're going to hit on some items that will impact all 3 programs or will apply to all 3 respective guidelines processes. We'll have some opening remarks from our executive director. We'll talk a little bit about the format for the workshops. Obviously, as Teresa mentioned, we are not back in person, so these are going to be virtual at least through the end of the calendar year. We've also scheduled, I want to say 3 or 4 workshops through the end of 2021 for each program as well, and those are all planned to be virtual at minimum. So, you know, we're planning on talking about the Performance Metrics Guidebook, which is a process that Hannah Walter has been working on with a select group of some subject matter experts from the regions, as well as with Caltrans. And we'll also be talking a little bit about how the CAPTI, which is an agenda item on the commission, at the commission meeting tomorrow, will kind of translate into our program workshops as well. So with that, I think at least if any of you are veteran RTPA group members, you've hopefully participated in some of our workshops before. You know, having a virtual workshop setting will be a little less, you know, conducive to maybe like the back and forth conversation, but we want to keep the conversation as free flow as possible. So, you know, we're open to ideas, I think, which when we discuss that next week. But other than that, we look forward to kicking off our Cycle 3 guidelines process, and it all starts on Tuesday, in a week from today. So any questions? I see Kenny's hand raised.
Yep.
That's me. Thank you, Matthew. And sorry if I missed this. I was curious if you were also going to have separate meetings to talk about the CMCPs. I know we have the CMCP guidelines that was adopted a while back, but I was wondering if we would do a separate one, or would that just be along with the SEC guideline workshops?
So the CMCP guidelines and the CMCPs as a standalone kind of actually major component to congested corridors will be discussed in the program workshops. We've obviously been in very close collaboration with Laura Pennybaker's team. We just didn't have, I think, the time to commit with a lot of other commission efforts before Cycle 3 is implemented. So we're not going to be changing the CMCP guidelines before Cycle 3, and any changes that will occur by the closing of the Cycle 3 congested corridor program guidelines as they relate to the CMCPs will be discussed in the program workshops.
Okay, so I think I might have misheard. You said that you weren't going to make any changes to the CMCP guidelines before this upcoming?
That's correct.
Cycle? Okay, because I think one of the concerns is, of course, that the guidelines right now say that for Cycle 3, Commission's expectation is to do a full CMCP. You wouldn't be looking at hybrids anymore. So I think there might be some concerns given COVID-19 and the difficulty of actually doing more outreach, and how that might impact new projects coming on. And furthermore, if projects had done a significant effort to do a hybrid model for Cycle 2, and maybe they weren't successful, and now they have to reinvest and start over for Cycle 3. So I would maybe recommend that your team examine if there might be an opportunity to reopen that and to accept some additional thoughts from around the state about looking at those requirements again.
Of course, and we've heard those concerns, or shared concerns, I think, regarding the commitment to go to full ground up plans that are in alignment with the CMCP guidelines. And like I said, we'll be discussing those concerns and potential remedies if remedies are considered through the program workshops.
All right. Other questions for Matthew? All right. So you may have seen I shared the list. Did I hear somebody else?
Yeah. So actually, Dawn, before I have you turn it over to Lori, I did want to just briefly introduce a new member to my team. Naveen Habib has actually joined the commission staff back in July. She is the new program manager for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. And so Mitch will actually be introducing her during his remarks tomorrow. So you'll hear a little bit more about Naveen, and her information is on the Congested Corridors website already. And I would say for the near future, I will be continuing to work on the program as we onboard her and get her familiar. So if you do have any questions for the Congested Corridors program, you can either reach out to Naveen or myself. But that was my last update. So thank you.
All right. Well, welcome, Naveen. So thank you for the update. I did want to let folks know attached to the final agenda was were the various save the dates, not just for the kickoff workshop on the overall programs, but the actual save the date that had listed those initial dates for the individual program workshops was included there as well. All right, Lori.
Thanks, Dawn. Okay, so I want to mention a couple quick things and then talk about the next cycle of the ATP. So the quick things are that next meeting, at the October meeting, Alika will be bringing forward what we call for the ATP, the Green Book, which is just a snapshot of where all the projects in the program are. And we ask anybody that can to look at it, just to check our work. And it's, you know, we started doing this a couple years ago, and it really helps us make sure that we're catching any mistakes and that we're keeping good track of the program. Second, we are holding a virtual ATP symposium with Caltrans and Sac State. As you remember, a couple years ago, we had a symposium before the last cycle. It was really successful. Unfortunately, this is not the time to be doing a in-person event like that because we really packed people in at the last one. So we thought about it and decided we wanted to do something, but it's going to be virtual October 26th, 27th, and 28th. And we're now just putting together the agenda. What the objective of the symposium is just to try to talk to about some issues surrounding active transportation outside of once we get into the nitty-gritty of an actual program. So you'll be seeing a lot of stuff on that. So hopefully everybody will attend, and we'll still have, you know, it won't be the same, but we'll still get some good information out of that. Okay, and then lastly, what I wanted to talk about is the engagement for the next cycle of the ATP. I can't remember what I talked about last RTPA meeting, but if I talked about the engagement, this is going to be a little bit different. So the sixth cycle of the ATP is coming up, and we wanted to use the same engagement model that we used last cycle, where we basically had 4 types of engagement. We had central workshops, which were our big workshops where we moved forward anything that we were working on. So if we were talking about the guidelines, we would make the decisions and move forward to the next meeting and things like that. Branch workshops we had were specific to the area that was hosting the branch workshops, such as the Tahoe area. We had one there. And that is to make sure that all parts of the state understand the program. And in these ones, we had more topics that were specific to that area. Like we would discuss how well that area was doing in the ATP and what areas maybe that they could work on, things like that. And then we did a lot of site visits where we looked at specific projects. Those were oftentimes in conjunction with the branch workshops. And then we just did any other kinds of engagement, like presenting at North State Super Region, meetings like that. So we would like to follow that same model, except at least for now, everything will need to be virtual. We just realized it's not responsible to be holding workshops all over the place and having people meet in person. It's kind of disappointing, but we just decided it was the right thing to do. There are a couple places that we had already committed to going to site visits next spring. So we're hoping maybe we'll still be able to do those if things have improved. But at this point, everything is virtual. We have a tentative schedule for the central workshops, and those will start. We'll have a kickoff workshop on November 9th. And we will also do a PSR equivalent workshop like we did last time. Caltrans will run that, and that was very well received. So we'd like to do that again. That really helps the applicants in putting together their applications. And so we'll post that soon. And we may add or remove workshops depending on how things are going. If things are going very smooth and there's not a lot to talk about, we may cut back on workshops. If there's more things to talk about, we'll always add more. We would still like to do branch workshops. So again, those will be virtual, but they'll be customized to the hosting area. And so if you would like a branch workshop, we could do that. So just let us know. And then lastly, we want to continue doing site visits, but they're going to be virtual. So we're working out the mechanics of this. We did a couple of these last cycle because everything kind of shut down when we were still trying to do site visits, and it worked out well, but I think they would be even better now because everyone's gotten used to a virtual format. So we're trying to figure out a way that Alika is not spending every minute of her time trying to schedule site visits, virtual site visits. So we're thinking about doing something like blocking out time every week from November till the end of February, and having anyone who's interested sign up for time slots. And so we'll probably have a suggested amount of time that people might need, and we have some basic kind of technical issues that they'll need to have for us to have these site visits. So we're working that out, and then we'll send something out as soon as we have it all figured out. And also, if there's any RTPs that are like to be more involved with their local agencies and would prefer to kind of organize their agencies around one day or something like that, just let us know. We can do that too. That worked out well, like in Tulare County last year. TCAG did a lot of the organization, and it was very organized, and I think they got more out of it that way. So if you have some local agencies that maybe need some help and you like to provide that, let us know, and we can include you in the planning of that. But we will advertise this as much as we can because we want to make sure everyone has the access to us as they're putting together their applications. So that's the plan, and we'll be letting you know more as we get it more nailed down. So are there any questions?
Hi, this is Victoria Cacciatore with SACOG. You mentioned that you have done the site visits before. What is what are you discussing at those, or what are the agencies asking you about at those?
So we look at, well, it's a lot of different things. A lot of it depends on how far along they are in planning the projects. Like we went to one, I won't say where we were, but they were very successful, where they had their project pretty much already planned, what they were going to submit. And so they just talked through it with us, and we had a couple suggestions, but we didn't, it was pretty much already set. Then we had others where the agencies are still thinking about what they want to do. And so we give them any kind of help that we can give. We are not engineers, we can't give engineering help, but we know the application very well and the evaluation process. And so we try to offer as much of our expertise in that area as we can. Does that help, Victoria?
Oh, sure. Thanks for the, not really clarification, but more info. Thank you for the more info.
Well, okay, so Victoria, if you need more clarification, just let me know.
So Lori, any and all information that you have that you'd like distributed to the RTPA group, we will be sending that out for you. Just send it along, and I'm happy to get it out to this group. I know that most of our RTPAs, will pass that on through their local jurisdictions, through their subcommittees and things. So
that'd be great.
Happy to do that and help our agencies
Thanks,
along. All right.
Oh,
are there?
Patricia has her hand up.
Oh yes. Okay, she does. Go ahead,
Hi,
Patricia.
this is Patricia. Hello, how are you doing, Lori?
Good. How are you, Patricia?
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're sitting on your porch.
Yes, I am.
It must not be horribly hot there.
Yeah, it's a nice day.
Sorry to take everybody's time chatting, but I did want to zero in on the site visits. I am pretty familiar with the central meetings and the branch meetings, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about what the site visits, what the purpose is, and who typically participates and that kind of thing.
Okay, so, well, we did all kinds of site visits last cycle and the cycle before, and it could, you know, sometimes it's even with a school district that wants to apply, and they will sometimes have their board members. We had one last time where a mayor was there, so we don't know who's going to show up. It could be anybody, and that's fine. But in a virtual format, it will be different. Like I said, we did a couple last time, and it's usually the applicant, and they describe their project to the extent that they can of what they know, and we give them some suggestions. You know, make sure you're talking about your destinations. Have you thought about taking those two small projects that are right next to each other and making them one bigger project? You know, things like that. It could be a lot of different things.
Okay, cool. That's super helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, I will just ask quickly CTC staff if there's anything else critical that you wanted to raise that wasn't on your agenda item.
Nothing from me, Dawn. I don't know about you, Teresa. Seeing she's not coming off mute, I think.
No problem. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the audits and investigations update. We have Diana Antony, the acting inspector general today, and Francis Parmeli, the assistant chief deputy inspector general. And you should be able to share your screen if you cannot. I'm happy to put your item up.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Again, I'm Diana Antony. I'm the acting can everybody hear me? I should probably double check on that. Yeah, perfect. We want to thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to both meet you all, and even though it's a virtual meeting, but just giving us time to share our audit plan for the next fiscal year. That's our primary objective here today, but definitely here to meet all of you. As Don mentioned, we also have Francis Parmeli, so she'll give a little update on just a few new faces at our organization. So she'll do that after I share the audit plan. So this is new for us. I don't know if we've shared this before in the past in any of the RTPA meetings. So again, we're excited to do that, and hopefully it's helpful. So I am going to try to share my screen. Let's see if that works. All right, tell me if you see an audit plan. Don, did that work?
That worked.
Excellent, very good. Okay, so as you can see, this is our audit plan for 21-22 fiscal year. This audit plan is on our website, and I will scroll down. Our website is here. If you do IG and then .dot.ca.gov, it'll take you to our specific website. And you can find it there. And among other items, we have our audit reports, we have our strategic plan and other items on our website for everybody's information. I'm going to go over it fairly quickly. The audit plan is fairly high level, and we do that for a primary purpose. As some of you might know, audit plans are just that. It's just a general direction for the year. But it is definitely subject to change as we move throughout the year and new priorities come up and or new requests come up. So the very first page of our audit plan is essentially just an introduction, you know, who we are, what gives us the authority, and what's our primary purpose. Clearly it's outlined in SB1, established our office in 2017. And so our primary purpose is to do oversight of both Caltrans and external entities that receive state and federal funding. And so that's our big overall primary purpose. As you can see here, we added our new IOAI mission statement, again, promoting accountability and transparency of transportation funding through our audits and our investigations. So the first pages are pretty high level introduction, kind of gives a couple statutes on our authority. Another section in our audit plan gives some general description about performance audits. And that is because that's the primary type of audit that we do in our office. There are performance audits in accordance to audit standards. And a performance audit is essentially pretty much, it really depends on the audit objective, but it's kind of a standard out there. Government agencies use government auditing standards, and so we follow those audit standards as well. But this kind of gives, again, a high level general description of the types of audits that our office may perform. Again, that's just a general description. And then we get into the 21-22 audit plan risk assessment. We perform this on an annual basis. We do a very high level risk assessment. And again, we look at all of Caltrans. We look at all of the programs. We take a look at the budget. We take a look at where all the primary funding sources going, what programs are receiving large amounts of funding, or maybe it's new funding. We consider a lot of different factors. And so this kind of section describes our process on how we do that. Yeah, so that kind of describes that. The next areas kind of dive into a little bit more of the different audits that our office performs. We kind of try to section them off into a couple different buckets. And so I'll go over that. So one of the areas is just our general oversight of state and federal funds. The way we do that is we do program audits. Program audits focus a lot on, here's Caltrans and they have a program. Here's the 3 programs listed for this fiscal year: Active Transportation Program, ATP, Local Partnership Program, and then Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Programs. So our program audits focus on, how is Caltrans administering this program? What are the controls and how are they doing that, and ensuring that the programmatic goals and objectives are being met? So this small section describes that, and it kind of describes the 3 program areas that we'll be focusing on this fiscal year. Project audits are our next large area that we do, and those are more specific. Those are individual projects that our office may go out and audit. These projects are selected again on a risk basis throughout the year. Again, we look at different risk factors, obviously one being just the amount of funding that a certain project receives. Is it large? Other risk factors may be, have we audited that local entity? Have we audited that project in the past? And if not, it might be raise its risk factor. And so those are different things that we might look at to determine which projects to select for audit. The projects come from all the different programs within Caltrans. So that's what that describes. So in a nutshell, those are our primary areas of audit: program audits and project audits. These next areas that I won't go into very much are just other areas that we audit. They're smaller in scope. We don't do as many of them, and so I'm not going to go into them. But if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer. So I'm just going to scroll through them. Again, the audit plan is on our website. I'm going to go down. These are just other kind of areas of audits that we do. Proposition 1B, that's just the funding source, but again, they're pretty much their project audits. Keep going. Follow-up audits. We do a lot of follow-up audits. We may have an audit that we issued to Caltrans, and then we require corrective action, and so we may perform follow-up audits on those types. Quality control review. This section just kind of describes and lets you all know that, so we also get audited. So we have a peer review that comes to our office and performs a peer review of making sure that we're following standards. And this occurs every 3 years, and we post that report onto our website as well. So that's just something that we put out there for everybody to know. Investigations is our other unit. So we're split up into 2 primary units: audits and then investigations. Our investigations are primarily focused on administrative investigations as described here. And so those are, that we have an ethics hotline that's available for all employees, but it's also available to the public to call in and, file a complaint or, questions. There may be a question on that, and our office determines whether or not to open a formal investigation. So that's our investigations unit. So that is it. That's our audit plan in a nutshell. It is high level on here, but all of our audit reports, like I said, are posted to our website. And again, that website is right here. So if there are any questions, I know that was quick, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Let's stop sharing. Dawn, any questions?
No, is there anybody else on the line that has any questions?
I'll stop sharing.
All right.
Okay, well, I do want to let Frances kind of share just some, there's been a lot of change in our organization in terms of new faces. So she was going to just highlight some areas that you might be familiar with. Frances, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I just wanted to share briefly, like some of the, a lot of organizational changes occurring here at IOAI over the last, I'd say 4 months or so. We've lost some key management positions, 3 at the audit chief level and 3 at our audit manager level. But luckily, we have a strategic plan to help guide our work, to provide us direction. So I just want, many of you may be familiar with some of the folks, have some history. So I just wanted to share some of the new names. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and you can take a picture if you'd like of our organizational chart as of today. So can you guys all see that org chart? Okay. As of August 2nd, Diana is our now acting Inspector General. I'll scoot over here at Finance and Operations. Some of you know probably Juanita Bear. She's been with our organization with Caltrans for quite some time. So she is overseeing our Finance and Operations unit. You'll notice there is maybe another familiar name, Alice Lee. She's been here a number of years here at Caltrans, and she will be co-leading project delivery alongside with Rosa Gonzalez. So given the large amount of responsibility over that area, we thought it was best to have 2 chiefs oversee that area. For planning and modal, that was overseen by Marsu Morel. Many of you are familiar with her also. This position is taken over by Fabiola Torres. She comes from Department of Finance and has a lot of experience with transportation also. So we're getting a large breadth of experience coming into our office. I did fail to share, Rosa comes from CalPERS. So she also had some SEO experience, state controller's office, has a little bit of transportation experience, but we're excited to have 2 new chiefs in our office just to help us continue on some of the goals that are laid out in our strategic plan. The investigations unit, some of you may have known Judy Amada. She has been there for 30+ years also. She retired back in May. Nicole Hernandez is our acting investigations chief, along with Billie Jean, who's also in an acting supervisor role. So you'll see across the board many names. Some may look familiar and some are brand new, but we're comforted to know that we do have the strategic plan. We have an audit plan too that can kind of guide us as we maneuver through this upcoming year. I do just want to brief you on that. I too am fairly brand new. I myself have a year of experience here at IOAI, but I came also with some experience from Department of Finance. I had like 20 years over there. So I hope you feel like you're in good hands over here at Caltrans. So I'll pause there if any of you have any questions in regards to kind of our organizational structure. I'll stop my screen.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Francis or for Diana? I really want to thank you guys for reaching out and for asking to participate. It's good to hear and see what's coming up in the future. I really hadn't realized how much turnover you guys have had up there, and some of those names. I worked for Caltrans years and years ago, so a lot of those folks I went through my management training with. Anyway, we do appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Well, we want to thank you all very much for inviting us. It's always nice to put a face, especially to auditors, hopefully not too scary. So, so thank you again for this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
And if all else fails and you can't contact anybody, please reach out to me or Diana on that end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, we're going to move on to the Caltrans updates. And first up, we have the draft ITSP with Marlon and Scott. Are either of you here?
Hi, Scott. This is Scott Sauer. I'll be giving the presentation. Marlon has another commitment, so I apologize for that.
Okay,
but
great.
I should feel. Okay, cool. So hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for letting me speak here. I always get great information from your group, not only in these meetings, but feedback afterwards. So thank you for that. As you know, the ITSP is the planning document for the interregional transportation system. We're implementing CTP 2050, and it provides guidance for the ITIP. I know you're all familiar with that. So just to give you a couple things on what Marlon's, he's going to give a quick overview tomorrow on basically the ITSP itself, the schedule, the development schedule we're working on, and some of the activities we're going to do with some of the workshops that are coming out. And so the structure of the plan, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, gives some background on the information. It talks about what's the interregional system. That identifies the key strategic interregional corridors along with the priority interregional facilities, and it includes the ITIP scoring criteria. So the big thing everyone's looking at are dates and all that information. Obviously, public outreach for the plan we put out for public review. I think it's August 2nd or August 3rd. September 10th is when we're going to close that public comment. We had a workshop on the 12th. For the ITIP scoring criteria, which is a key element of the plan. So I know a lot of you participated in that, and you obviously can continue to participate with us on that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I know a few have already talked to me about that. I can participate in meetings or calls or anything like that. And then we have 2 more workshops coming up. August 24th and 26th are going to be the workshops for the North and South for just the ITSP in general, the whole ITSP. Obviously, it's virtual, so you don't have to attend the North one if you're in the South, or vice versa. Whichever one's more convenient for you. We just followed the old process with the ITIP hearings to kind of make that familiar, but either one of them would be fine for that. And of course, we're going to finalize the plan October 1st. The goal is to get it done before October 15th, and when we submit the draft ITIP to the CTC. And if you did miss the ITIP workshop a couple days ago, last week, we will be posting it on our website, and then we're going to provide the summary of those graphs that we created during that plan. I think that's that's the overview I have at this moment. Does anybody have any questions about the plan, the presentation, or anything like that?
Anybody with questions? I wondered, Scott, what kind of, common responses, comments, or questions, have you been receiving since the draft was released?
Well,
is there any common theme?
We have a few different ones. A lot of it is there's a lot of questions on the scoring criteria, exactly how we're going to use it, and I think how we're going to rank the scores and all of that stuff. And that's something we're working through. We want to get as much information from the districts and in collaboration with all of you on doing that. So that's going to be, that's, I think, one of the themes of questions. The other is, are we going to we have strategies and improvement strategies at the end of each of the strategic and regional corridors, and they're relatively broad. And so people were asking, you know, how are we going to get more specific, align it to individual corridors? And just to give you, that's something we're going to be working on. We'll continue after the ITSP is done. It's going to be a high-level policy document. We're going to continue refining that and doing more analysis on those corridors to really kind of clarify some of that information more specifically for the corridors as time goes by. So that'll be something we continue with. And beyond that, you know, just comments on adding different lanes or different, not different lanes, different highways to the priority and regional facilities, or included in the analysis or the discussion of the corridors. Those are the general comments we've received so far.
All righty. Well, thank you. I see Patricia's hand is up.
There we go. Okay. Hi, thank you again. And I just have one kind of general question, which is, to what extent do the recent documents such as the CTP and the CAPD influence what goes into the scoring criteria?
Well, obviously the ITSP is the interregional modal plan that implements the CTP. So we always look at the CTP 2050. That's a traditional thing. And we basically adopt their 8 goals as our 8 goals. And so as we were looking at the scoring criteria, I mean, that's the goals of the plan are aligned in that respect. CAPD wise, CAPD captures a lot of the different policies that have come out, you know, climate change in there. There's a lot of different ones. And so that is also a part as we develop not only the strategies for the plan itself, but the scoring criteria, that was a part of it. But we also looked, you know, this is interregional transportation. What's the interregional transportation element of the CTP or the element of CAPD? So we do want to have an interregional perspective on it. So stressing freight movement, intercity rail, stressing the emergency evacuation and climate change. So we want to address those issues, but in a regional perspective. So it was part of the whole decision-making process. That answers that well.
Super, thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, any other questions for Scott? All right. Well, hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to the next item on Caltrans updates, and that is local assistance. We have a Clean California update with Emily Abraham, and then an OA update with Sujaya, and then we'll go into some discussion on the policy and working group updates. So Emily, are you here? Or Dee, would you like to start?
Hi, Dawn. Thanks for, I'm always excited to be here. Lots of good updates. Okay, so really quick, local assistance. Gosh, lots of new initiatives, modified initiatives, some pivoting, some improvements. I know we've been working a lot with many of you here on the line. Number one, definitely want to say thank you for your participation. It makes a huge impact. I know the latest and greatest with the agreements, you know, the OA that Sujaya will touch upon. So before we dive into with my team, I definitely do want to say one quick thing. Tomorrow, no, the 19th, so a couple days, I am on deck to present at the CTC meeting, and I'm presenting on local assistance, kind of audit, oversight, and assistance. So I think it's very timely. Thanks, Diana and Francis, coming on board here, sharing about audits from an inspector general perspective. And then tomorrow, in a couple of days, I get to kind of share audits from a kind of local assistance perspective. So that will be on deck there. And then Clean California, Emily's going to hop on and give us an update. I do want to caveat, we are just working at Mach speed to stand up a program from scratch. So a lot of moving parts within local assistance, within other functional area of Caltrans and beyond. And I'm so pleased that we can do some outreach with all of you and many others in the workshop forum. So workshops, will allow us to get as much feedback as we can, go back to the ranch, as you know, incorporate tons of comments, think of, the program in all kind of facets. I do want to extend my thanks to Emily Abrahams. Within a few short weeks, she's been able to put so many components in place to even make this workshop on the first happen. I do want to say that I have provided some relief. We have onboarded Gretchen Chavez, who you'll be hearing from a lot more as we move forward with Clean California. She is our acting program manager or office chief for our Clean California effort. I won't take up too much time. I know we're running out of time, but again, appreciate everybody. Off to you, Emily.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Abrahams, and I will talk to you about Clean California today. So the entire Clean California program, I wanted to start off with that. It's a $1.1 billion program that makes serious investment in litter collection, community engagement, and education to transform unsightly roadsides into spaces of pride for all Californians. So in the entire program, there are kind of 4 major components. So the first one is expanding litter pickup through creating more jobs and increasing public access to waste facilities, including free monthly disposal sites. The second component is a statewide public engagement or a public education campaign that focuses on properly throwing away trash and then the impacts of littering to natural resources and public health. The third component is enhancing infrastructure through beautification projects on the state highway system. And then the fourth component is investing in local communities through local grants for litter abatement and beautification projects. And so that's the piece that I'm going to talk to you guys about today, which is the Clean California Local Grant Program. So a subset of the whole thing. But this local grant program is a 2-year program, and it has approximately $296 million for communities to beautify and improve local streets and roads, tribal lands, parks, pathways, and transit centers. So as Dee mentioned, right now Caltrans is working on developing guidelines for the Clean California Local Grant Program. And so I'll quickly go over kind of the high-level overview of the program's intent. Like I mentioned, it has approximately $296 million as part of the 2-year program. So all projects must be completed by June 30th, 2023. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time. We do recognize, the diverse funding needs of local agencies throughout the state. So there will be a local match component, but it will range from 0 to 50% of the total project cost, depending on some criteria that is developed in the guidelines. So more to come on that. The maximum project amount is $5 million as well. In terms of underserved communities, half of the overall program funds will benefit or be located in underserved communities. And this will also be further defined in the guidelines. So we'll likely use, CalEnviroScreen 4.0, median household income, some of those other definitions of underserved communities. So more to come on that in the guidelines. Project types include community litter abatement and beautification projects, and then community litter abatement events and educational programs as well. So the big announcement we have for you today, and I'll share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. We have released our workshop dates. So in developing our guidelines, we will be hosting 2 workshops for local communities to solicit to get input from local communities through these 2 workshops. The first date is September 1st from 8:30 to 12:30, so coming up in just a few weeks. And then the second one is October 7th, again from 8:30 to 12:30. The second workshop will build off the first workshop, and we'll build off the comments and feedback we do receive at the first workshop. An email went out yesterday announcing these workshop dates. So I believe Don forwarded it to all of you. So hopefully you got it, and you can also distribute to local agencies and tribal governments and transit agencies within your regions. Registration for the workshops is not available yet, but it will be posted on our website by next week. So keep checking back for that, and we will send another email announcement when that is available. I'll put in our website in the chat here so that you can go to our website and get the most up-to-date information there. And I'll also put in a quick plug for our Clean California Local Grant Program mailing list. So if you want to receive direct updates on our website at the bottom of the page, you can sign up for our mailing list there. The other thing I wanted to highlight is our project timeline. And so this is our anticipated dates. It can change and the dates will be solidified through the workshops, but we are anticipating the call for projects to be in November or early December. The project application deadline will be in early February, and then the project award notification will be in early March. So again, those are our targets, but subject to change. So make sure you keep checking back on that. Let's see. So here's our fact sheet that is posted on our website. So you can see the dates are listed here, and we will update our website, accordingly. Since these dates are coming up very soon, we did want to stress to local agencies that you can start, preparing your projects now, even with the basic information that is available on our website. And after the first workshop, once you get a little more information, definitely start identifying potential project sites or educational program concepts. Plan and begin your community engagement, because that's going to be a piece of the application, and start your project or program design plans now. So definitely starting early will be an advantage and help you out. And then of course, stay informed on the draft guidelines and updates through the workshops in our website. And that is all I have on the program right now. I'll take any questions at this point.
I see Peter DeHaan has his hand raised, so go ahead, Peter. You're muted. So let's see.
Sorry about that. Okay, all right. Yes, Emily, thank you. This sounds like a very interesting program, a lot of potential. My question is, why does it end after 2 years? Is that like from the source of funds that Caltrans has for it? Because sounds like if this could be a big success, and people might want it to continue.
Yes, exactly. It's just the source of funding has that expiration date at this point. So it's one-time funding from the general fund for this initiative at this time.
Thank you.
All right, Victoria.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if there's an expectation about carbon sequestration along with the intersection of greening and urban heat island reduction.
Yes, reducing the urban heat island effect is in our program goals. So I didn't read those off, but they are listed on the website. So yes, that will definitely be a consideration within the projects.
Oh, I meant is carbon sequestration of the plants that you would put in as part of the greening. Is that considered, such as when you have natural resources agency projects, your plantings are expected to sequester carbon in addition to providing shade and urban greening?
I'm not sure. So we will definitely take that into account, and we can talk about it at the guidelines workshops, but I'll make note of that to look into it.
All righty, we have Nefeli is next.
Yeah, thank you. Nefeli Barrett with the Mendocino Council of Governments, and I apologize if you already gave this information and I missed it, but I see that projects can be on tribal lands. Are tribal governments eligible to be applicants?
Yes, they are. However, the contracting mechanism, there'll be different options for tribes. So we'll lay that out in the guidelines, but it'll be similar to the other grant programs that Caltrans administers. So if a tribe can partner with a local entity, that would be a method. We can also contract directly with them if they waive their sovereign immunity, and then it could also go through BIA. So there's a few options, but they will be laid out in our guidelines.
Great, thank you.
All righty, Sarkis.
Thank you, Dawn. Hi, Emily. Hope you're doing well. I had a question. If you don't have the answer today, that's fine. But you mentioned that there were 4 different components of the state budget program for programs like these. And the third one was for improvements on the state highway system. Is any information going to be out about that? And then potential opportunities to partner with local agencies that have the state highway system going, acting as a main street for them?
Yes, so there's another project lead working on the state projects, and part of the requirement of those as well is engaging the local entity. So that'll be a component of that. And then I think in both cases, in the local grant program as well, you know, it could be a main street in a local community. So that would be an eligible project location, and we will be incorporating some information about how that would work in the guidelines.
Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions? Anybody else? Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys. You know, I think we've all been kind of eagerly awaiting this since we've heard about it. I had received several questions myself from folks to, you know, requesting that we talk about this program. So we appreciate you guys working so quickly to get everything out to us and to put this together. So we're looking forward to the workshops, and we'll move along to Sujaya if she's here on the OA update.
Hi, Dawn. Yep. So a quick update on the OA. You know, a lot of you have been looking at the OA delivery report, and you might be concerned that you're not seeing that number increase over that 60, 65%. So I thought I'd give you a quick overview of all the OA numbers. The total OA that we received this year was 1.22 billion. And as of July 30th, we had obligated 800 million, which is 65% roughly. But between July 30th and August 16th, we obligated another 200 million. So now our OA usage is at 82.2%. There are projects pending in FEMAS for about 121 million. And if you add that, that will take our OA up to 92.2%. And then there are projects pending in headquarters queue. If you add that up, we will be at 100% OA usage, maybe by next week. Now for August redistribution, we had asked for 53 million. I don't know how much we get, but I am hopeful we will get projects in queue to use all of that up. We also have our bridge loan proposal where regions have signed loan agreements to transfer urban STBGP to the bridge program. So that is our backup plan for using up our AR if we receive more than what we planned for. So I think we are in a much better OA usage situation now than we were in the beginning of the fiscal year. Some of the regions were concerned about not seeing their FTA transfers go through, especially Metro, which had like 150 million FTA sitting there for a long time. All the FTAs were processed between August 3rd and 5th. And so you should see a jump in your regional OAUs for your August OA delivery report. That's it for me. I can take any questions.
Well, it's very good to hear that that the usage is getting up there. It's ticking up quite a bit. I am curious to know, you know, there is a group talking about the OA policy and delivery, but I am curious to know what, you know, what additional efforts, you know, should the August redistributed OA come in and the state receive something higher than the initial ask on the local assistance side. Have you identified some of the projects that still have outstanding advanced construction as well?
Right. we have at least one AC conversion, which is quite a large one, which I am saving for it and saving for other reasons too. And we have this bridge loan program proposal, which adds up to about $81 million. We don't want to use it unless we have to. And there are projects in the district here, which I'm hopeful will come through. So if the regions have projects, there's still time. August 27th is the deadline for districts to submit their E76s to us. And typically this deadline's around August 21st, the third week of August. But based on the request from the regions and the discussions at the OABMP committee, I pushed it to as far out as possible to get more projects in. So August 27th is really last minute. So please make sure your districts get the E76s to headquarters so we can line it up ready for August redistribution. I've been getting a lot of questions, or I'm sometimes getting projects saying, can you guarantee that we'll get AR on this because we want to take advantage of AR? That's not something I can guarantee because it's first come, first serve. You need to have all documents in place. Your E76 has to be ready to obligate, and then it depends on how much AR we get. So in those cases, I'm responding saying, no, we'll hold it in queue, but we will obligate depending on how much we get. So I just want to share that message, but I am planning, or we are planning for August distribution.
And do you have you heard from Federal Highways when they anticipate that they'll be making that announcement? The August distribution?
I haven't heard a date yet. You know, I was talking to Rodney and Matt today, you know, there was no mention of it, but close to August 27th, I hope.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's good news. Does anybody have questions for Sujaya? All
and
right.
Congratulations to Jose Luis on the urban loans. So that's $15 million more. Let's get these 76s in.
Yeah, that's a good thing. All right, so we will go ahead and move on to the policy and working group updates. We have Felicia to talk about inactive projects on agency certification. Robert's going to have a HIP update, and then we're going to circle back to the training day reminder.
All right. Yeah. Happy afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to follow up with, once your project is obligated, invoice, invoice, invoice. So please listen up, hear my plea. We do constant outreach for these inactive. So hopefully you've been getting outreach from your districts. If you haven't, let us know, because we have a lot of projects on our inactive list, over 200. So that's a lot of projects, but we have a goal of 2% that most people know. The last 2 quarters, we have not met that 2%. That's very significant. This is a big deal to FHWA. It's a big deal to us. California gets a lot of money. So we are very visible to the rest of the nation. So currently, as of the end of July, we were over 4%. That's significant, but we project if we don't have any billing or any DOBs, by the end of the 4th quarter, we'll be upwards of 6.6. And that's crazy talk, right? So we don't want to get to crazy talk. We want to invoice. We realize there are other issues why agencies can't invoice. That's why I'll talk about the agency certification here in a minute. But please invoice. So we have been working with FHWA to come up with strategies. Like, how do we handle these inactives? This has to, we have to get these down. We have to figure out how to move projects forward. So our first strategy was to tackle projects that are greater than 24 months, equal to or greater than 24 months, greater than $50,000 that have not been reimbursed for 24 months. So we tackled those. We sent out notification to the districts in May saying, hey, we need to tackle these. This is one of our first strategies to implement for inactives. So the district started to reduce that list. We did send out an official letter towards the end of July, on July 19th, to the district deputy directors and the DLA East to let them know, or the district directors, to let them know that these projects on this list, we are going to target for deobligation unless we get a justification by August 6th and a cost estimate to back it up. So we did review those. Those are at FHWA being reviewed right now, but that's only a small dent in our unexpended balance. So good strategy. First strategy. Our next outreach, and we sent a blog out on that, so agencies are aware that we have to make some changes on the inactives. So everyone, I think, had seen that. We do continuously do outreach, as I mentioned, and I know FHWA does it as well, because that 2% is a big deal. In the next 2 weeks, we will be having meetings with districts to tackle high dollar inactives. So these are projects greater than 12 months that are high dollar. So we really need to reduce those. There's some big ones out there. So we do post our inactives on our internet. So you could look those up, look them up by agency, project number, district. So again, just try to reduce those ASAP, because we don't want to have to deob funding based on inactivity. We'd rather have the agencies bill for those. So that kind of rolls me into my next topic of agency certification. So as I mentioned, we realized that when an agency can't invoice, there's another problem, right? There's something systemic within their process. So the agency certification, I did a little presentation on it a couple months ago, but it's basically a risk-based qualifications program to assess an agency's readiness and competence. So this is one thing that we've heard kind of over and over from the agencies, RTPAs, districts, all across the board, FHWA, audits. We need to assess their personnel. Do they have the proper personnel? Who are those personnel? Sometimes we don't know who those are. We should probably know who those are. So we looked at, in our last local agency stakeholder meeting, which was last month, we kind of went over the risk and opportunity management plan. And we took that from FHWA. We like the model, but we need to be able to assess basically the scope cost schedule. These are kind of on a per project basis, assess the resources. So we went over that. We also looked at the risk level matrix. So when a project comes in, we have, what is the risk on that? Is it high, moderate, low? Have they done, the PS&E, the right of way, the NEPA, what are the risks on that? So we did have that document out. We are meeting again with the local agency stakeholders this Thursday. So in that meeting, we're going to propose our quality program plan. So again, we look at what can we implement that brings the highest value, but is not cumbersome. So when we first looked at quality program plans, we reached out to other states, we reached out to FHWA, and of course we reached out to local agencies and said, is this feasible? Well, we found that having an agency write a whole quality program plan is probably not feasible. There's probably a few agencies that can just pull that off and understand what's in it. So we're actually taking components from that and putting it into our qualifications application to try to beef that up. But it's basically going to incorporate, it'll have an invoice focus. So we'll require that every agency has some kind of policy on invoicing and quality control, like who's going to look over documents when it comes from an agency, because that's another gap that we see is when agencies submit documents, who's going to be responsible that they are sufficient. So a lot of agencies will see our requirements in the LAPM, but do they understand what the documents are? So we're hoping to create a checklist that can guide them, and hey, what's your quality control within your own agency? In addition to that, we're looking at what kind of training would we need. So we realized that we need training not just for the local agencies on the program, which is a big piece of it. So we've been working with other states on what they do as far as training, and then training the districts on how to, what this program is and how to implement that. We do have a chapter set aside in the LAPM for this process. So hopefully it's really clear on what this can offer. And then of course, we'll look at if we need certification agreements that are in addition to, so it clearly spells out the roles and responsibilities and what's actually been delegated. So that's kind of where we're at on the agency certification program. And we have, like I said, we've done a lot of outreach and we've done some peer exchanges with other states to try to understand, how they run their programs, the pros and cons, and where this will get us. But again, it is a risk-based approach. So we're looking at how do we assess the risks and it makes sense. So it's not a big burden on anyone, but we still get the job done and can provide value. So I'll stop right there. Are there any questions on the inactives or the agency certification program?
In the interest of time, if you have additional questions on those issues, you can send them through me or directly to Felicia. I've been participating and I will be participating Thursday with the group. So I'm happy to elevate questions there as well.
Perfect.
Thank you. If that's okay with folks, we'll move on to Robert.
A quick comment on the inactives and DOBs. The DOBs will impact your OA. So if we have to make a decisions on DOBs, we're making it sooner than later. We don't want to be doing it at the last minute and then releasing more money into the OA part. So just a heads up on it. If you're invoicing, like act now on the greater than 24-month list.
That's a good point. We used to tell everybody, no de-obligations in the last quarter. Wait till October 1st. All right, Robert.
Okay, Don, thanks. Yeah, real quick. So I'll take a minute. We are at the 11th hour, as you know, at the hip for lapsing funds. If you look at the spreadsheet, it doesn't look good, but there's one project. There's, LA Metro does have a project. It's in they will hopefully will be obligating that. Once that happens, then we're down to just about 3.3 million. All the other agencies have said that they're going to be obligating it. So that leaves around $10,000. Really small agencies had no plans. And so the state will take and use those funds up, which is about $10,000. So that's the good news. If everybody comes through with their obligations, this year will close with 100% success, and I'll report on for next year. Hopefully a lot of the agencies will use all of their HIP funds for the next 3 years, and then we will be more successful as far as not coming to the 11th hour here to try to get all these funds obligated. So anyhow, that's where we're at. I do know federal resources would like to have more of a deadline sooner and then not scrambling here at the end. So stay tuned for that. You might hear more about that. All right, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Before we move to the training day reminder, and I just want to put in a plug too for, federal repurposing is still out there and available, but you got to get those in like yesterday to your DLEs. If you have additional earmarks for projects that final vouchered last year that now have some savings, I think you need to get them in sooner rather than later, right, Dee? Probably yesterday. Okay, the training day reminder, Kelly's up. I did also put a draft agenda for the training day in the PDF with the agenda for today. So if anybody has comments on those, they can send them to me, but here you go, Kelly.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. So a few months ago, we did send out a survey to everybody and asking for topics that everybody might want. And so we came up with an agenda, and it's up here. And so basically we're going to do a 4-hour day with the standard leadership message from Don and Dee. We're going to do 2 round robins to try to elicit some feedback. We're going to do one before the training starts, and that's just to try to catch up on some things that we might have missed in the survey. We're going to go into, we've worked with Felicia's group and Felicia's in turn worked with the other offices, Robert and Sujaya and Ogo. And so we got a whole list of topics there for you. And the theme is critical dates and deadlines. That's basically what we're doing. So we're going to try to touch on a lot of critical information for you guys. We'll have a couple breaks, and then we'll do a session on ADA, and then environmental, we'll have a session at the end there. And then we'll finish up with some more, another breakout. We are being hosted on Zoom by Sac State. The round robins will be facilitated by them, and we're going to be using Mentimeter, which is an interactive website to get feedback. And what we're going to eventually look for is this is the first one of these that we're doing. Right now, we don't know if this is a one-off, but we're hoping maybe we do something more regular. So the agenda that Don sent out does have a link to register and that's right there at the top of the page. And we'll be sending out a reminder as well. It's about 3 weeks from tomorrow, September 8th, 8:30 to 12:30. So that's all I have, Don.
All righty, well, thank you. So that brings us down to other items of business, and I wanted to let folks know that the plan for now is to continue having our RTPA meetings virtually from 2 to 4 p.m. on the Tuesday before the commission meeting. This meeting for August was changed from a hybrid to a virtual meeting. And so I think with the commission, we'll hear from them more directly on their plans at the meeting. But I anticipate, unfortunately, we won't be getting together for happy hour anytime soon. With that, I guess I will ask if anybody has any other items planning for that October RTPA meeting. I have asked James Anderson about a presentation on shop planning and programming and how CAPTI and other complete street influences might affect the 2022 shop. And shop outreach, working with all of us to determine, where there are complete street opportunities for the shop projects. So hopefully we will have that discussion in October. Anything else that folks have on their mind, they can either email me or let me know. And I really do want to thank you for your patience. We rectified the participant limit issue, and hopefully this will not be a problem moving forward. All right, hearing nothing, we are adjourned, and thank you guys for hanging in.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.